Now, earlier tonight, while campaigning for Florida gubernatorial candidate Ron DeSantis, well, the president had this to say about the upcoming elections and so much more. Let's take a look.
Democrats want to raise your taxes. They want to destroy your jobs. They want to crush our industries with crippling regulations. Republicans want strong borders and no crime. Democrats want open borders, which equals massive crime. And on top of that, the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, the whole group, Maxine, she likes me a lot. She likes me a lot. They've launched outrageous attacks on our incredible law enforcement officers and on ICE and our Border Patrol. Can you believe it? People that keep us safe. Their new platform, what they want to do, the Democrat Party, they want to abolish ICE. In other words, they want to let MS-13 rule our country. That's not going to happen. In some states, Democrats are even trying to give illegal immigrants the right to vote. They want to give them the right to vote. If you want safety, if you want borders, if you want to have a country, then you need to go out and vote Republican.
So tonight, while President Trump slammed, rightly, Democrats, many in the crowd actually called out the abusively biased press in this country. In fact, many Floridians in attendance let CNN's Jim Acosta know exactly what they thought about his network's partisan, abusively biased coverage. Take a look.
The White House has held only 3 briefings for the press this month and 8 total since the end of May. There is no other way to describe what the White House is doing these days. Wolf, top officials, including the president, are hiding from the press. And Wolf, just to give you a sense as to what's happening right now, you can hear there is a chorus of boos and other chants from this Trump crowd here in Tampa, Florida. They're saying things like CNN sucks, go home, and fake news. Wolf, obviously, all of those things are false. We're staying right here. We're going to do our job and report on this rally to all of our viewers here tonight. Wolf.
Jim, they're not wrong. It's not false. You're probably watching because you don't watch your own network. I'm going to actually give your network some advice. If you have an open mind and an open heart, maybe a little humility. The people of this country, they're screaming at you for a reason. They don't like your unfair, abusively biased treatment of the President of the United States. Now, if you want to earn the respect of all Americans, not the coastal elites in California, L.A., San Francisco, D.C., and New York, maybe try reporting the entire story. Maybe try getting rid of the bias. Maybe examine, why are people saying this to us? In other words, coverage like this from the White House correspondent at CNN, this is why they're doing it. Take a look.
I'm going to move on. David, go ahead.
The president's tone
Jim,
towards the press.
Thank you.
The president's tone towards the press obviously is not helpful at times, and I think that that's plain to see. There are some fears up on Capitol Hill, and we understand some in the White House, that a Democratic wave is coming and could sweep the Republicans out of power in the House, and that could potentially lead to impeachment proceedings that the Democrats could bring forward. What is the president's thinking on that? What is your thinking on that? You understand how
Andrew?
The law could be different than border security, sir. Border security can mean
actually,
drones,
I don't,
it can mean agents, it could mean more fencing. It doesn't necessarily mean a physical
And that's part of the
wall
negotiation that we expect Congress to have.
But you understand Democrats are saying that they may not be in favor of this kind of deal. That they say thanks, but no thanks for a wall.
Jim, I'm not negotiating with you. I'm going to let Congress take care of that.
What we're witnessing right now is just this erosion of our freedoms in terms of covering the President of the United States. I think that there are moments when this president is just really sensitive to criticism, and he lashes out in this fashion. That is just a strange and unpresidential thing to do, to be throwing rolls of paper towels at people.
The last 3 news conferences, Wolf, all of the questions to the American news media have been handled by conservative press. And I think, Wolf, there's no other way to describe it, but the fix is in.
The Statue of Liberty has always been
let me ask you a question.
Of hope to the world, for people to send
do you believe,
people to this country, and they're not always going to speak English, Stephen.
Jim,
they're not
do you
always
believe,
going to be highly skilled. They're not always going to be
Jim, I appreciate your speech.
I think we saw the president's true colors today, and I'm not sure they were red, white, and blue.
Not red, white, and blue. Jim Acosta, that's called opinion. And you're extremely rude. Oh, and a liberal partisan hack. That's why Americans don't trust you or fake news CNN. You pretend to be fair and unbiased journalists. You're not. You're not reporting facts. You're giving your opinion. You're an opinion channel. Every minute of every day, every week, 24/7, hate Trump. And it's pretty obvious, and the people see it. So instead of maybe doubling down on your anti-Trump rage, maybe look inward. Maybe find your zen. Maybe find your inner peace. Analyze objectively the overwhelming, nonstop, hysterical coverage against the president. In other words, maybe you'll have better luck getting an interview if you start being a little fair. Maybe, just maybe, you'll take my advice. I tend to doubt it. We do have a recent study. Fox News, that's right, this channel, not fake news CNN, is among the most trusted brands in TV news. Now, sadly, I doubt CNN is going to take my advice. So while CNN continues to trash the president hour after hour, minute after minute, day after day, many on the left, other never-Trumpers are engaging in rhetoric that is even worse, literally bottom of the barrel. Now, this week on Twitter, one congressional candidate from Oregon used one of the single most vulgar terms to describe the First Lady of the United States. Imagine the outrage if a Republican candidate ever said the same thing about the former First Lady, Michelle Obama. The outrage from these very same people would be nonstop. But the media has largely ignored this story. Still, some Republicans are calling for Twitter to ban this deranged Trump hater from their social media platform. We're not going to hold our breath.
And that gives us an opportunity to point something out. The White House has only held 3 press briefings all month. Now, these things used to be common enough that they were actually called the daily White House briefing, which meant daily. Now, you can call them nearly extinct, which makes what you're about to hear kind of odd. Give it a listen and ask yourself, does this sound like a promise?
We are here. We are taking questions. We are doing everything we can to provide regular and constant information to the American people. And there is a responsibility by you guys to provide accurate information. And we're going to continue to try to work with you.
Well, she said that May 9th. That entire month, there were 9 White House press briefings. In June, just 5. This month, only 3. So tell us, what was that again?
We are here. We are taking questions. We are doing everything we can to provide regular and constant information to the American people.
Everything they can do to provide regular and constant information. Everything they can do. See, for a minute there, it sounded like Sarah Sanders was actually promising to provide regular and constant information to the American people. Keeping them honest, we'd ask her why she promised people one thing and is doing the polar opposite, but we simply haven't had the chance because there have only been 3 briefings this month. If you'd like to ask Sarah Sanders about her promise, take a number. If you'd like to know what President Trump thinks of Michael Cohen's reported allegation about the Trump Tower Russia meeting, get in line. If you want to see the president challenged about why the White House lied about the president not being involved with wanting to buy Karen McDougal's silence after audio tape shows he actually was, sorry, you are out of luck. And the same goes for false and misleading statements like this one just yesterday. The president tweeting, a highly respected federal judge today stated that the Trump administration gets great credit for reuniting illegal families. Thank you. And please look at the previous administration's record. Not good. The president neglected to point out that the judge also admonished the administration for essentially making orphans out of hundreds of kids. That's one of the beauties of the Twitter machine this president has discovered. You can omit, you can rephrase, you can make stuff up, whatever you want, and no one can challenge you. Last year, Anthony Scaramucci, the new White House communications director for those 10 glorious days, or was it 11, refused to commit to regular White House briefings. The following May, the president threatened to replace them with written handouts, he said, in the name of accuracy. That didn't happen, but it sure looks like the idea of reducing transparency and accountability is actually gaining traction at the White House today. President Trump, for example, left for his trip to Florida this afternoon without saying a word to reporters. And in case you're wondering, that is par for the course. With the exception of his joint appearance alongside Italy's prime minister yesterday, the president has refused to answer reporters' questions 16 times in just the last 6 days.
Mr. President, did Michael Cohen betray you, sir? Mr. President, why did you cancel the meeting with Vladimir Putin, sir?
Well, that's what we're seeing more and more of, unanswered questions and fewer chances to ask them. And in the meantime, the president reportedly is itching for more occasions like the one he just finished up at tonight, more rallies, venues where he can say whatever he wants and hear nothing in return but applause. Our Jim Acosta is in Tampa for us tonight, joins us now. So this lack of transparency, I mean, is there any other reason they are doing this other than simply the fact that they don't want to answer questions, for instance, about why the president lied and why the White House, why the campaign, I should say, lied about the president not knowing anything about Karen McDougal and AMI and the deal?
Anderson, I think the only thing you can conclude, and you're going to hear some folks here, I think, letting their feelings be known at this rally here in Tampa about how they feel about CNN. But, Anderson, I think the honest answer to your question is that this White House is obviously hiding from the press. They are hiding the president from the press. They are hiding the press secretary from the press. That's the only conclusion you can come to when they've only had 5 press briefings in the last month of June and only 3 press briefings this month. I mean, that is historically at a very low level. Now, one thing we should point out, Anderson, at this rally tonight, the president went after what he calls fake news. He even talked about fake polls, even though he touted a poll that he said that he had seen saying that he was the most popular Republican president ever. It's hard to understand how you can have fake polls but also tout polls that show you being popular. But Anderson, despite the president going after the press, he just hasn't given us opportunities to ask him very many questions. And I think there really is no other, reasonable conclusion other than they just don't like the questions that are going to be asked right now. I've been trying to talk to White House aides about this. And one of the things that you hear, and they've said this before in the past, is that, well, when the president has a speech or when he has an event, they don't want to step on the message of the day. Well, the president had a speech tonight, and so there was no press briefing today. It is possible they could have one tomorrow, Anderson, but we just don't know at this point.
Yeah, I mean, so there's no idea when the next one might be held.
Say that again?
There's no idea. It's not scheduled when the next one might be held.
I think it is possible, and I'm pushing these earpieces in my ear just to hear you, Anderson. I think it's possible they could hold one tomorrow, but aides are being very cagey about it. One thing they'll talk about is they have these off-camera gaggles when the president is traveling down on Air Force One and that sort of thing to various events. But as you and I both know, Anderson, that's not the same as having an on-camera briefing with the press secretary coming into the briefing room. We used to call them daily press briefings. They're barely weekly press briefings anymore. And I think, Anderson, the only conclusion you can draw at this point is that they just don't like the questions right now. And it's amazing, Anderson, you're hearing some of the insults being hurled at us right now. I've been talking to some of these folks this evening, even though they're being pretty negative towards us right now. I answered a bunch of questions from some of these Trump supporters here about all sorts of things. A lot more questions than the president has taken from us in recent days, Anderson.
Jim Acosta, appreciate you being there. Thanks, Jim. I want to bring in 2 new voices. One, former Obama senior advisor David